Are you trying to decide whether to upgrade to the new iPhone 15 Pro Max? With major changes to the camera setup and materials, it may be worth it this year. The iPhone 15 Pro Max is finally here, and for many Apple fans, the upgraded camera and switch to titanium has made this a highly anticipated release. But is it truly a big jump from last year's model, the iPhone 14 Pro Max? In this video, we'll compare the specs and features of these two flagship iPhones. We'll break down the differences in performance, battery life, display, camera capabilities, and more. That way, you can determine if the iPhone 15 Pro Max is worth the upgrade from the still impressive iPhone 14 Pro Max, or if you're better off sticking with last year's model. Let's dive in. When it comes to size, the iPhone 15 Pro Max is slightly more compact than last year's model. It shaves off a tiny bit of length and width, making it a hair more pocketable, though these phones are still on the large side. The newest iPhone is also thinner, slimming down to 0.32 inches compared to 0.31 inches for a sleeker overall feel. Despite the minor size decrease, Apple managed to drop some weight this time around. The iPhone 15 Pro Max weighs in at just 7.81 ounces, nearly a full ounce lighter than the 8.47-ounce iPhone 14 Pro Max. This is thanks in part to the use of titanium rather than stainless steel for the frame. In terms of design, both models feature Apple's signature flat edges and aerodynamic look. The big change is the material, with the iPhone 15 Pro Max being the first to utilize lightweight yet durable grade 5 titanium. This not only contributes to the reduced weight, but gives the phone a more premium, eye-catching appearance. One small but notable design tweak is the removal of the ring silent toggle. It's been replaced by a customizable action button that can still silence your ringer, but also has additional functionality. Overall, the iPhone 15 Pro Max refines an already appealing aesthetic while shaving off size and weight. When it comes to the display, not much has changed between these two iPhone models. Both phones feature a 6.7-inch OLED display with Apple's Super Retina XDR technology. The resolution remains an ultra-sharp 2796 by 1290 pixels, equating to 460 pixels per inch. You'll get the same stellar 2,000,000:1 contrast ratio on both screens, along with a peak typical brightness of 1000 nits and a max HDR brightness of 1600 nits. The displays can also hit an outdoor peak brightness of 2000 nits. Promotion adaptive refresh rates up to 120 Hz are supported as well. The always-on display introduced on the iPhone 14 Pro Max makes a return on the 15 Pro Max, letting you view basic info without waking the full screen. And taking the place of the notch is the Dynamic Island, which adds interactive notifications and alerts. iOS 17 will bring some enhancements to the Dynamic Island too. Other display specs that remain consistent include wide color and true tone support, HDR capabilities, and an oleophobic coating to resist fingerprints. Overall, the screens offer an identical viewing experience, so your decision between these two iPhones won't be impacted much by the display. You're getting Apple's top-of-the-line Super Retina XDR panel either way. The iPhone 15 Pro Max takes Apple's already impressive pro-level camera system up a notch with some significant enhancements, especially on the telephoto end. Let's start with the rear setup. Both phones have a 48-megapixel main-wide camera with an f1.78 aperture and sensor-shift optical image stabilization. The 14 Pro Max takes 12-megapixel shots by default, while the 15 Pro Max now outputs at 24-megapixel for more detail. The 15 also adds the ability to shoot at 24mm, 28mm, and 35mm focal lengths. For ultra-wide duties, the duo again match with 12-megapixel f2.2 cameras and 120-degree fields of view. This is where things diverge. The iPhone 15 Pro Max equips a completely revamped 12-megapixel telephoto with a 5x optical zoom range courtesy of a unique tetraprism design. Combined with sensor shift stabilization, it enables up to 25x digital zoom. The 14 Pro Max maxes out at 15x digital zoom with its 3x telephoto lens. Both sets of cameras deliver night mode, portrait mode with lighting effects, ProRes video up to 4K 30 FPS, and more. However, the 15 Pro Max takes a commanding lead for videography with 4K ProRes recording at 60 FPS with external drive support. This finally enables raw, high bitrate capture right on your iPhone. It also brings log video and the Academy color encoding system for advanced post-processing. Around front, you'll find identical 12-megapixel true-depth selfie cameras, on both with support for 4K 60 FPS video, cinematic mode, and ProRes up to 4K 30 FPS. Again, the 15 Pro Max one-ups its predecessor by offering externally recorded 4K ProRes 60 FPS footage. If you want the absolute best zoom capabilities and most pro-level video specs from an iPhone, the upgraded telephoto lens and connectivity of the 15 Pro Max deliver. For still photography, the new 24-megapixel default resolution is nice to have too, but casual users will be well served by the still great versatility of the 14 Pro Max's triple camera array. The iPhone 15 Pro Max is powered by Apple's newest A17 Pro chip, while the iPhone 14 Pro Max used last year's A16 Bionic processor. The A17 Pro represents an incremental improvement, but still a noticeable boost in performance. It uses the same 6-core CPU configuration, but the cores themselves are approximately 10% faster thanks to optimizations by Apple. The GPU also gets an upgrade, with Apple claiming the new 6-core version offers 20% faster graphics rendering versus the A16's GPU. The A17 adds support for hardware-accelerated ray tracing as well for more realistic visuals in games and apps. Neural engine performance doubles with the A17 Pro, hitting nearly 34 trillion operations per second by Apple's estimates. This will accelerate machine learning tasks. Overall, while not a revolutionary leap, the A17 Pro delivers better all-around speed and efficiency. Early benchmarks indicate around a 10 to 15% performance jump over the still very fast A16 Bionic. This should translate into snappier app loading, better multitasking, and higher frame rates in demanding games. Of course, the A16 Bionic is no slouch and still blazes through iOS with ease. But if you want every last ounce of power, especially for future demanding apps and games, the A17 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max has the edge. Expect noticeably smoother performance across the board. The big change this year is the switch to USB-C charging data. The iPhone 14 Pro Max used the long-standing Lightning port with transfer speeds up to 480 megabits per second. With USB-C, the iPhone 15 Pro Max hits 10 Gbps for drastically faster wired data transfers. This is a boon for photographers and videographers who need to offload hefty photo and video files. Apple says you can even record ProRes video directly to an external SSD now. The much higher bandwidth of USB-C finally makes this feasible. So while you're still getting baseline solid connectivity on the iPhone 14 Pro Max, the iPhone 15 Pro Max expands your wireless capabilities with Wi-Fi 6E and UWB. And the switch to USB-C is game-changing for wired transfer speeds. If fast data offloading is important, USB-C alone may warrant upgrading. Apple claims identical battery life for both phones, up to 29 hours of video playback, 25 hours streamed video, and 95 hours audio. Real-world tests will determine if the 15 Pro Max optimizes power better with the A17 Pro chip. For charging, the process is the same. You can fast charge to 50% in 35 minutes wired, while wireless charging tops out at 15 watts with MagSafe. Both support Qi wireless charging as well. Durability remains uncompromised with IP68 water and dust resistance on both models, surviving depths up to 6 meters for 30 minutes. They also share helpful safety features like crash detection and the new roadside assistance via satellite to connect you with help when cellular service is unavailable. Pricing does see an unfortunate bump with the iPhone 15 Pro Max. It now starts at $1,199 for 128 gigabytes, with 256 gigabytes at $1,299, 512 gigabytes for $1,499, and 1 terabyte for $1,699. The 14 Pro Max launched $100 cheaper across the board. You do get more baseline storage, as the 14 Pro Max's base model was 128 gigabytes versus 256 gigabytes on the 15 Pro Max. But the pricing increase still makes the 14 Pro Max a better value, delivering the same core experience for less money. Unless you need the improved cameras and connectivity, saving $100 upfront on the still superb iPhone 14 Pro Max is compelling.